So while Kenny Clark has taken his 10.5 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks with him to the NFL's Green Bay Packers, UCLA has a lot of name guys coming from the high school ranks to take his place, a lot of highly recruited prospects that it's time for them to step up. We bring in Mike Regalado from Gojo Bruin to help us out with the Bruins defensive front. Mike, it's always a good time. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Thank you for having me again. Thank you.
Yeah, let's talk D-tackle here. I'm running down the recruiting rankings from the last few years, and there's just a ton of guys on the defensive front in general that were highly ranked in the last two recruiting classes, and maybe Boss Tagaloa might be at the head of that class at D-tackle.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, before we get into that, just to note that UCLA is going from a 3-4 to a 4-3, mostly because they really need to shore up the run defense, which was just atrocious. I believe it was 7th in the Pac-12 last year. So that's one thing that defensive coordinator Tom Bradley wanted to do. The thing with recruiting in the last couple of years is that UCLA hasn't been that lucky recruiting defensive linemen. This year, I think, what is it? They had six or seven guys commit to the team, so they are going to be stacked for years to come. At the tackle, last year with the 3-4, they only had the nose tackle, which Kenny Clark, had a hold of. This year, they're going to be using 2 tackles, nose tackle, which will be Elianku, and defensive tackle, right next to him, Eddie Vanderdoes, who is a huge addition. Well, not addition, he's returning from injury. He injured his knee in the first game last season. So it was unfortunate that we didn't get to see the Kenny Clark, Eddie Vanderdoes tandem, which would have been monstrous. But, Clark, he has the skills. So he went to the NFL with Green Bay, and Eddie Vanderdoes was rehabilitating his knee all last year, and he looks strong, and he seems very excited to come back and help take over where Clark left off. Behind them, it depends, because like I said, the Bruins have a lot of freshmen coming in, and one of the biggest ones is Boss Tagaloa, who was thought to be UCLA lean, and that those sentiments just got stronger as National Signing Day approached. And when he announced, when he pulled out that UCLA hat, the Bruin fan base just gave a huge sigh of relief, because he could be a guy very similar to Eddie Vanderdoes, but at the same time, he's still a freshman, so he has to get acclimated to what Tom Bradley and Jim Mora are going to do on defense. But in the meantime, UCLA has several players. Blanking on one right now. Matt Dickerson, Jacob Tuioti Mariner. These guys have kind of been interchangeable a little bit, but I think this year with a more solid structure in the 4-3, that they are going to have set roles rather than trying to flip flop players around and see who performs best. And basically having guys set in their positions so that they don't have to try to figure out how to stop the run, because that was a huge thing last year.
Yeah, and for as bad as it was against the run, obviously injuries were just ravaged the defensive front, and Vanderdoes really on all levels. You had one of your stars on each level of the defense lost for the majority of the season, and we'll talk about that in exceeding videos that we come across here. Defensive end, Mike, I'm looking at 5 players that were ranked in the top 75 at defensive end in the last 2 recruiting classes. So a lot of reinforcements coming there to get after the quarterback.
Yeah, in shifting from the 3-4 to the 4-3, UCLA actually did run some 4-3 last year. What they did was that they had the outside linebackers, Deion Hollins, and I'm blanking who was his backup. They basically played up on the line. They were basically edge rushers, which UCLA has been missing since Anthony Barr left for the NFL. But what's happening there is that on the ends, you're going to have Takaris McKinley, who's going to have his second full season. It's going to be his 3rd season with UCLA, but his second full season as an edge rusher. Behind him is a guy that a lot of Bruin fans have been waiting for, Keisean Lucier-South, who looked fantastic during spring. I mean, he is quick off the edge. He's powerful. He's able to swim past a lot of the tackles on the offensive line. So his progression is also going to be key and something Bruin fans should look at. On the other end, like I said, last year was basically linebackers. So those Deion Hollins has basically moved up on to the defensive line, and like I said, that's basically to stop the run at all costs, because it was just horrible. With all those injuries, it's just UCLA just could not stop the bleeding. And in the last 2 games last season, they just got run over by USC and Nebraska, a team that needed to petition to get into a bowl. So it was that was highly embarrassing on the defensive end. So Tom Bradley is really looking to make some huge adjustments and make sure that all these players are up to speed, and especially when fall comes around, making sure all the freshmen do what they need. One guy who was actually pretty impressive, he was a transfer, and he enrolled early in spring, Nick Terry. Still pretty raw, has some work to do, but he looked like he adjusted to the system, fairly quickly. So he should be, hopefully, he should be a very integral part of the defensive line. So hopefully everything is shored up, and we get some good work in the trenches.
Stopping the run, paramount to UCLA success in 2016, especially if you look at the schedule. Some fine running backs on the slate and that final game, especially with USC and Ronald Jones and company. Mike Regalado from Gojo Bruin helping us out with the defensive front at UCLA. Mike, we appreciate the time, man.
Thank you very much.